Hello everyone, Dr. Chris Martinson back with you here on January 7th, 2021. Hey, I got to meet my heroes. Evie and I traveled to Houston. Come on, let me show you who we met. You know what they say, you shouldn't meet your heroes because when you do, you'll probably be disappointed. Not in this case. I got to travel to Houston with Evie and we went and met some of the FLCCC, the frontline COVID critical care doctors, including Dr. Kory, whose explosive Senate testimony, millions of views, and Dr. Marik, as well as Dr. Varon, really astonishing people. So let's just go take a look at what that was. This was just tons of fun. All right. First up, Evie and I were off to Houston, one of the first trips we've taken together. This is actually my second trip of the year. The first one was down to the Tim Pool show, but that was just a week prior. So this is my first time traveling, of course, with masks. Everybody out there is masked, all of that stuff. And we went to Houston because we had a chance to meet up with these folks right here, the Frontline COVID Critical Care Alliance doctors, the FLCCC. And what an amazing thing. Here we are in the restaurant. That's Dr. Marik on the left and Dr. Kory on the right there. And by the way, these two, just to be around them, they're just ribbing each other just mercilessly. The camaraderie is extraordinary, you know, and just really merciless, but all in good fun, just amazing. Very quick wits on both of them. So Livio was there with us recording, and this wasn't the brain lock, to forget the title on this, but this is, here we are meeting for the first time. So good to meet you.
I was waiting for you too, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, I haven't been so excited to meet two people that I have in a long time. I was like, where are those guys? I'm looking for them. They said they'd be here.
That's so good.
Chris, it's really great to see you, man.
And that other person on the right is Michael Capuzzo. He's writing a book on what he's calling the COVID cowboys. So it's just, he's chronicling this whole thing, which I'm really glad he's doing, because these doctors are really, truly heroes. What they're doing out there in the world is they are changing, putting everything on the line, their reputations, their careers, all of it on the line, not making any money at this. They're not in it for the fame. I can tell you, these doctors are in it because they care and they want to help people. So they're my tribe entirely, your tribe too, probably. This is Dr. Marik. He's a super nice guy, just unbelievably nice guy. And I wrote in parens to us because he's not such a nice guy, I don't think, if you're a doctor who's doing shoddy work. He's really very, very crisp in his evidence-based medicine and how he approaches things. So these doctors, again, they have thousands of publications between them. They've treated thousands and thousands of patients, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of collective COVID patients at this point in time. They have an amazing body of critical care medicine, evidence-based medicine. So they're really out just doing astonishing things. And we also got to meet with, and that's Dr. Varon there all the way on that side of things. You're that way in blue. Dr. Varon, amazing. This guy, by the time we got down to interview him, he had been working 294 straight days doing rounding they call it, with patients, COVID patients in his 117-bed hospital. One of the lowest, if not the lowest, death rates in the entire state of Texas, if not the country. And you would think that a hospital doing that well would just be overrun with other doctors and interested parties saying, how do you do this? That's not the case, unfortunately. It's just not the case at all. And so Evie and I, we got to, there we are in Dr. Varon's office. It's just full of amazing stuff. He's a pilot, he's a diver, he's just, obviously super interesting guy, but couldn't believe that he'd been working not just 294 days straight, but we were the 750th interview that he'd given since COVID started. And he had as much time as we wanted. We took up 2 full hours of his time. We got a lot of amazing material. Soon as we get through all this material, we have Dr. Kory all alone. We've got Dr. Marik all alone. We've got Dr. Varon alone. We've got all 3 of them together. We've got amazing material here that we're going to be presenting to you. We'll present what we can here on YouTube because in other places like this, see what we can get, what we can do. But we don't want to trip up the censors anymore. So you know what we'll do? We'll put an interesting trailer here, but we'll probably be hosting it back at our own website and putting it up on other platforms because this information they have is just too important to get out. Now, we were, one of the fun parts was, this is day one, we've met, we haven't started for formal interviews. Here, Dr. Kory and I are discussing a specific thing. He asked me, hey, Chris, when you send people to doctors, which I do all the time, people say, hey, Chris, how can I convince my doctor that there are these other treatments I want them to look into? I'll say, hey, get yourself, here's a paper, bring them this paper, bring them these charts, give them this information. He does the same thing as one of the preeminent doctors that other doctors should be listening to. And so here we were about to, without any, just live on the spot, without any preamble to it, he's asking the question, hey, Chris, what percentage of doctors would you say are swayed by the information? And he wanted us to shout our answer out at the same time.
Can I just ask you, what percentage, because by the way, I'm drowning in this. While I'm rounding on patients, writing, emailing, on the phone, many people are getting to us. Yeah. And some of them are actively sick. And our first response is, go to your doctor, take this manuscript, take my one-page summary,
That's it.
go.
You send them with that stuff.
And I would say, I want to know what percentage of the time you think that's successful. We're going to say it on 3. I'm going to give you my percentage. 1, 2, 3, 10%.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
So obviously we had a lot of fun. He's just a fun guy, and we were comparing notes, and he was having the same experience that I've been having, probably you've been having. Just how hard it is to get people, doctors in particular, to look at data, to look at evidence. Now these guys, the FLCCC, they embody the best of doctoring. They are the best. If I was sick in critical care, if I had sepsis, I would want to be treated by Dr. Marik. He's one of the world's leading sepsis experts, and his statistics are astonishing compared to other centers and doctors. If I had COVID, these are the people I would want attending to me. And they were doing a lot of our 2 days together, 2.5 days, was really just talking about how hard it is to get the medical system to change its point of view. And they want RCTs, they want data this way, they want it that. It's kind of tricky, but I did get the backstory. Dr. Marik has been kind of a renegade his whole career, and when he sees evidence that says something works, he goes with that. Not what he's supposed to go with, not what standard of care is. Doesn't matter if other doctors are going to be embarrassed because they've been doing it differently or even wrong. What this is all about is about evidence-based doctors saying, we care about our patients, what we care about is using evidence to come up with the best outcome we can. So that's what they care about. And they do a great job at it. So Dr. Marik told me that one of his first big issues was around how he'd been treating sepsis patients. And so he'd come up with a protocol with some other doctors, and it was the core of that protocol was what was used to develop the Math Plus protocol, because there's a lot of similarities between how sepsis patients' bodies are reacting and how their lungs are reacting and how COVID patients are reacting and coming down with things. So they noticed some similarities, and they said, well, nothing else is working. Standard of care is putting people on ventilators with an 84% death rate once they go on the ventilator. So they said, let's not do that. They tried some other things. You got to try, right? If the choice is not trying and watching people just die, which is intolerable, or trying things that might work, you go with what might work. And so that's what doctoring is, of course, good doctoring. So they did that with sepsis patients, and Dr. Marik tells us this whole story about how one of the things that really worked was high-dose intravenous vitamin C. And he was very skeptical of it for a while, but then tried it and was like, oh my gosh, this stuff really works. And then the HAT protocol came out of that, which is heparin, ascorbic acid is the A, and then the thiamine. Those 3 things together really seem to do wonders for sepsis. At any rate, so he's an amazing trailblazer, and here's an article that just came out very recently in MedPage Today, and I guess I will get my fancy drawing tool out here. And they're talking about the FLCCC, which is that frontline COVID critical care group. By the way, you go to the COVID critical care, COVID19critical.com. Yep, that gets you to the FLCCC webpage. In there, you've got all kinds of information, just packed with stuff. All the latest information on dwizz-n-bin 2, all the latest information on these things, which are very difficult for me to talk about openly yet, but good news. There's going to be really big movement on this front coming soon. That's at least something I can tell you. It feels that way. I'm very convinced that there's going to be big movement on this coming soon. And I feel great about that because people's lives can be saved. What, 4,000 people died yesterday? It doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. That's the subtext to all of this. At any rate, I'm going to give you a little quick synopsis of just sort of what we're up against here, because I like really what I'm about, and hopefully what you've gathered from this all along the way, is this is about a way of thinking. It's about how to think. It's about thinking critically. It's about thinking with evidence-based approaches. It's about using our own common sense. It's about adding things together and coming up with the same result time after time. So here's a little article, comes out in MedPage today, and it's kind of a mixed bag, and I'm going to show you why. So the FLCCC formed, they say, in March 2020 at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in the US as a way to keep each other updated on the latest COVID-19 science, and that's true, all good reporting there. Group members had known each other before that, though, through their common interest in and work on vitamin C, Dr. Marik said. Marik is known in the field for developing the HAT protocol for sepsis, which also hasn't been without controversy. It's a combination of hydrocortisone, ascorbic acid, or vitamin C, and thiamine. His group's 2017 observational study of the protocol, published in Chest, garnered excitement about the combination, but that hasn't been borne out in subsequent trials, including the adrenal study, which looked at steroids alone, the citrus ali study, which looked at vitamin C alone, and the vitamins trial, which randomized patients to the full protocol, but was open label. Oh, there's your bias, so we can't trust the vitamins trial. So again, notice what he talked about was things in combination. And then there are other studies which pull those things apart, like taking the zinc out, for instance, and saying, oh, look, it doesn't work. That's one thing, but this is even worse than that. So we're going to dig into this. So I looked into one of them. I'm like, okay, this didn't work. I was interested in the vitamin C side. So I looked at the citrus ali study, this thing right here, all right? And so this reporting says, yeah, it didn't work. There was some excitement, but it just didn't work. So I'm like, that's disappointing, because Paul Marik told me personally over breakfast and then over lunch all about how the vitamin C was actually the critical part of that study, and it really did work. So I'm like, it's a bummer when study results can't be replicated. It's more than a bummer. It says there's either something wrong with one of those two studies or something like that. So I was like, I got to look into this, because I was really taken by the story, and I'm going to tell you the whole story about vitamin C sometime when I have more time. It's an amazing story that I didn't know. I thought I knew about vitamin C, but it turns out I didn't. So I'm going to have to look into it more, because it's an astonishing story. One you're going to love. We'll get to it in a future episode. So here's that citrus ali study. It's a randomized clinical trial in RCT. So this is the new standard that everybody's insisting on. Used to be you could have observational trials, but now they all have to be randomized. So that's what this one is. And it says here, effective vitamin C infusion, that's IV, right? You're getting it IV, on organ failure and biomarkers of inflammation and vascular injury in patients with sepsis and severe acute respiratory failure. So you can see the overlap here with COVID, that severe acute respiratory failure. That's sort of one of the things that happens, is that the lungs getting just trounced and everything like that. So this is that study, and so okay. They looked at it, randomized. I like it. And really disappointing, or is it? A little foreshadowing there. Check this out. The key points at the front of this thing. So if you just read the abstract, which is what I suspect the journalist did, and we'll get to that in a second. The question they were seeking to answer is this: can intravenous administration of high-dose vitamin C reduce organ failure scores and biomarkers of inflammation and vascular injury among patients with sepsis and acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS? Findings. In this randomized clinical trial that included 167 patients in the ICU, intravenous infusion of high-dose vitamin C versus placebo for 96 hours resulted in no significant differences in the modified sequential organ failure assessment score at 96 hours, or in levels of C-reactive protein and thrombomodulin at 168 hours, meaning among patients with sepsis and ARDS, high-dose vitamin C infusion compared with placebo did not significantly reduce organ failure scores or improve biomarker levels at 168 hours. Now, if you read this far, if this is all you got, you go, well, we had an RCT. These are really good doctors. A lot of doctors' names on this paper. It's in the Journal of American Medicine, JAMA. What are you going to do? This is a preeminent journal, an RCT, gold standard. Vitamin C doesn't work, right? Actually wrong. So I'm the kind of guy where I'm like, well, let me see the data. So I read all the way down, and guess what I find in this paper? You won't believe it. Maybe you will. This is astonishing. This is what we're up against here. And I don't even know how to explain this. This has nothing to do with COVID, has nothing to do with dwizz-n-bin 1 or 2, has nothing to do with that. This is vitamin C. But it kind of explains a lot of things. Look at figure 3. All-cause mortality, and this is from the same paper as before, right? Pulled from this one we're discussing. All-cause mortality from randomization at day 0 to day 28 among patients with sepsis-associated acute respiratory distress syndrome. And I'm like, this is overall mortality probability percents. As you go up this axis, things are getting worse. And for placebo, look at this, it's like 45% of the people with sepsis in this trial died, compared to about, looks like 29% in vitamin C. And is a p-value of 0.01. It's significantly reduced mortality. Call me crazy, but I'm thinking that reducing mortality was kind of maybe the point of all this, not whether or not the specific biomarkers you chose at 96 hours weren't exactly significantly different from each other. Isn't the point of all this for people not to die? I'm a little confused, right? Because the findings here are, among patients with blah, blah, placebo did not significantly reduce organ failure scores or improve biomarker levels, but they did die a lot less. So there is that. I'm thinking you buried the lead in this story. I'm thinking if you had a little review, somebody would say, maybe you ought to put this somewhere up top and be a little bit less excited about your biomarker levels. I don't know. Call me crazy. The amazing part of all this is getting down into the discussion in this own paper. So get this discussion. Among the 46 secondary outcomes that were examined in this trial, 43 showed no significant differences between the vitamin C group and the placebo group. All right, there it is. Among the 46 things, 43 of them, no difference. No difference from placebo. Although, this is going to be one of the biggest althoughs you're going to run into this week. Although, this is getting kind of funny, vitamin C compared to placebo was associated with a significant reduction in 28-day all-cause mortality, with significantly increased ICU-free days to day 28 and hospital-free days to day 60. Although, just we tracked 46 things, 43 of them like just complete BS, no good. People didn't die as much. They got out of the hospital sooner, didn't spend as much time in the ICU. But besides that, you know what that reminds me of? Reminds me of that scene in Monty Python, you know, where the guy's like, well, what have the Romans ever done for us, right? So I'm going to rephrase that as like, well, what has vitamin C ever done for a patient, right? and then you know, that person in the rabble says, oh, it's lowered deaths. Oh yeah, but besides that, right? What does it ever? It reduced time in the ICU, right? But besides that, what else? And it reduced time in the hospital, right? All right. Apart from the lowered mortality, reduced ICU time, and shorter hospital stays, what has high-dose IV vitamin C ever done for a sepsis patient? Just having a little fun because this is kind of what we're up against here in the dwizz-n-bin 1 and the dwizz-n-bin 2 story. These people did an RCT. They used just vitamin C out of this protocol. They found that it significantly improved mortality, and decided to lead with the idea that it didn't improve certain biomarkers that they were looking at. Now again, call me crazy, but one of the key biomarkers I look for is breathing and a heartbeat. I don't know what to do with this kind of information. This is nuts. This speaks to a system that really needs to be changed a little bit, I guess, or something like that. So at any rate, you know, it reminds me of this quote, which I've pulled up before, which is, "It was as useless to fight against the interpretations of ignorance as to whip the fog." Thank you, George Eliot, for that. So, Christina Fiore, you wrote this pretty good article. I would really ask you to go back and look at this particular paragraph here, and in particular, really check this stuff out here, because I'm not sure the right interpretation has been put on all of this exactly. So at any rate, great trip. I can't wait to show you some of the footage from this. Amazing people, these doctors, what they're doing and how they go about it. This is the kind of stuff that they've been up against for a long, long, long time. This sort of purposeful sort of misinterpretation of things. It's not evidence-based. It's just not. So I like evidence-based stuff. It means they're part of our tribe. We are talking about all this, and if you want to see what's going on, you can come over to Peak Prosperity. We talk a lot about this and the things that I learned from them, Evie and I, that we learned from them. This is a picture of us in the airport again. So we did learn a bunch of things from them about their experiences in treating this, how treatable COVID is, things like that. It just was astonishing. And unfortunately, I don't really feel like I can go into a lot of them here on YouTube for obvious reasons. Now, all of that said, I really am very inspired to come out with more content here on this program. And one of the ways I'm going to be doing that is we're going to be coming up with a new live show. So if you're watching the premiere of this, you get to comment in the chat and all that stuff. Otherwise, these things are static shows that go up and then you can comment below. It's great. We're going to do this live so that as if I was presenting all of this to you live right now, I would actually be presenting this live right now, and you'd be able to comment and we'd be able to interact with this material live. So I'm going to be putting on a live show. We're coming out with that soon. It's really going to be based on evidence-based reality, my favorite kind. And we're going to be doing things like just digging through data like this. We're going to be talking about all different kinds of things because these are really huge times. And I just want to be able to get more content to you more quickly. So that's the nature of the show. So it'll sound a lot like this, but live. And then you could always watch the recorded stuff later too. All right. So if you found any of this useful or you think you're going to like this show, please, hit the like button. It's the way that YouTube algorithm knows that this is all good. If you didn't like it, don't press the button. That's all good. At any rate, glad to be back with you. We just got back late last night, so just had to sort of really rally to get this out to you today. But here we are, and we're going to be doing more of this, and we're going to be doing this live in a live show format going forward. Guests, great content, all that stuff. All right, that's all I got for you. Thanks a lot, and remember, come on by if you want to talk about this. Great conversations going on over here. We had 110 comments within a very short time. Big, meaty comments, too, not just like this. These are usually very big, awesome comments by people talking about really detailed stuff around that subject there that's on those words right there that dwizz-n-bin too. All right, that's it. That's all I got. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.